Hi, this is Brian Kearns, Haddon Road Advisors. Last week I bought this can of Campbell's condensed tomato soup. I paid $1.75, and I realized that at the start of this decade in January 2020, I would have paid 85 cents. What happened? Inflation. Well, that matters. How does it matter to you, and what can you do about it? Well, stick with me. Okay, why does this matter? Well, inflation's an economic headwind. It's corrosive to general economic well-being. It's corrosive to your well-being. And if you paid $1.75, you'd be like, what am I going to do? Well, um, here's the problem. Going from 5% to 4% inflation, which has happened recently, is helpful. Going from 3 to 2%, it's going to be much more difficult. The Federal Reserve, their goal is 2%. Rates may be higher than we think to get us down to there. Uh, let's take a look at price histories to see what the risks are of inflation and deflation. Okay, next. This is why I like Campbell's tomato soup, because there is a 125-year price history of Campbell's tomato soup. If you look at this is what's happened during different environments. If you look at Circle One, that's the 1970s. I was a young boy then, and inflation kicked off, and the Federal Reserve raised rates. And my parents had I think it was a 10 or a 12% mortgage. I don't quite remember. And think about that in terms of a headwind. And back then there was a period where you could buy a 30-year US Treasury bond at a 15% yield. So price uncertainty, how do you plan for the future when you're not sure what prices are going to be, where you're going to get your money back, how's it going to work? That's one problem. The second problem is in Circle Two. Well, you say, well, then we just need a period of deflation. Well, you don't necessarily want deflation, because then you lose pricing power. And if you lose pricing power enough, you can have what happened in the 1930s, which is the Great Depression. So you don't want deflation. You don't want inflation. You want the thing in the middle. Look at between 1 and 2. This was the greatest period of economic expansion in the United States, the 50s and 60s, a lot of industrial production, and prices were level. Level prices make it easier to make decisions out into the future. Are we going to get there now? Well, that's the big question. And that's where the big green circle, the big green question mark is. So where's inflation going to go? This is the debate out there in the economic world. We are right down here. If you look at the graph from the 70s from the Economic Cycle Research Institute, you can see this roller coaster ride. Higher inflation comes back down, back up. Right about down here is where the Fed in the 70s cut rates because they thought the job was done. That's the same thing that the Federal Reserve is talking about now. Will it work now, or will we end up in another roller coaster like we did in the 70s? Nobody really knows. But what can you do about it? Well, let's be defensive. Stress test your current financial plan. Ask your advisor to run the inflation rate in your plan, which they probably ran at 2% because that was the general gist of it. Run it at 3%. I've been running plans at 4% just to see what it looks like for clients, to give them an idea of what are the options for the future and how does this look. In terms of the stock market, look at sectors that have pricing power, like healthcare, and look to mitigate downside risks with hedges. That's a big subject. I won't touch it right now. In the bond market, look for shorter dated bond ladders that can insulate portfolios from excessive volatility, and tips help too. That's short and sweet. Hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, any comments, if you want to connect, love to. Brian Kearns, Haddon Road Advisors. Thanks for watching.